tossing and tossing. All right, everybody. Welcome to the November 25th, 2019 meeting of the Newmarket Budget Committee. And as always, I'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. Most members are here, but I did want to make mention that we have two absences. Rob Ortons and Trevor McDonald are not going to make this meeting. They are otherwise occupied, and Patricia Denmark, our recorder, is not able to make this meeting also. So I would just ask that all members of the committee during the meeting make sure that your microphone is pointed at you and that it is on so that we can take our notes from the recording of this meeting. Also, I'd like to welcome Mr. Steve Fournier, Town Administrator, and Mr. Bill Tappan, the Interim Finance Director, which we will hear from in a little bit, right after our first order of business, which is to approve the minutes of the October 28th, 2019 meeting. Can I have a motion to approve?
I have a comment on one.
Sure, we'll make a motion and second it, and then we'll get into discussion.
Motion to approve the minutes of the October 28th Budget Committee meeting.
Thanks, Dan. Second. Thank you. Comments?
Okay. On the page 3, under the CIB committee updates,
Yep.
really what I think it was Chris that said that $7 was really kind of like a placeholder. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's what it said.
That's what it seemed like to me as well.
Yeah.
On the police budget, there was a line item on the vehicles for $7, and that line item is really, my understanding, like a placeholder.
Yeah. I tried to explain what you said in the budget presentation.
Yeah.
All right, we'll ask Patricia to make that edit before we. Anything else?
Nope,
noticed?
that's
Anybody else notice anything? Great. So with those edits, I'll go to vote. So all in favor of accepting the draft minutes from October 28th, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And any abstentions? One abstention from Zachary.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. All right. At this time, I'd like to bring up Mr. Steve Fournier, the Newmarket Town Administrator, and Mr. Bill Tappan where necessary. I believe you have a couple of slides to share with us for the 2021 budget.
Correct. This is the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. So, not this coming June. Or she goes off. Sorry. For June, not this coming June, but the following June. Before we start though, I just want to make sure. Clarify, what the role of the Budget Committee is in this process. The Budget Committee according to state law, is a subcommittee of the legislative body, which in this, only for budgetary purposes in the town, the legislative body is the voters, so the town meeting. So what the role of the municipal budget committee is to review what the council adopted as a budget and say yay or nay, that's what the people can afford. And ultimately, it's the budget committee's budget that goes on the ballot. So if the budget committee says, well, we believe it should be less, you can reduce it. If they believe it could be more, you can increase it. However, you can only increase the bottom line. So say if you were going to, I'm just throwing things out there, say $5,000 for computers, and you wanted to make that reduction. And the council and myself, we look at it and say, you know what? We disagree with the $5,000 for computers. We're going to reduce road paving by $5,000 to cover that difference. The budget committee doesn't get to determine where the funds come from. It determines the bottom line. In addition, the law allows for periodic updates of the budget, but it's not a fiscal oversight committee of the town. That purview falls to the council. It's the council's job to oversee the budget with myself and the finance director. So just before we get in. And again, this is for the fiscal year ending 2021. And we're discussing the budget that was adopted by the town council. What I always like to go over is some of the economic indicators. The first one I always look at is the consumer price index. We're not seeing the increase in the consumer price index as we had in the past. The United States last year, it was an increase of 2.9%. This year it's 1.7. For the Northeast Regional, it was 2.7, it's 1.6. And for Boston, which we're a part of and we tend to look at for our figures, last year the increase in the consumer price index was 3.4, and this year was only 2. That was mainly due to oil prices not increasing as much. Usually that's one of the main factors in driving the consumer price index. However, we're still seeing historic rates for unemployment. Last year, the United States was at 4.3, we're at 4.1. The state is at 2% last year, we're at 2.7. The county was at 2.7, and it's at 3 this year. The Portsmouth Metro, which we're part of, was 2 last year, and it's 2.4. And Newmarket itself was at 1.9, and it's at 2.1. These figures, unemployment is actually negligible. This could be a flip of seasonal employment. It's nothing, it's basically we have no unemployment. This is the current tax rate, which was set a few weeks ago. The current tax rate is now $24.26 per thousand. As you probably are aware, the largest portion of any given tax bill is the school, what goes to the school. The local school rate is $15.63. The state school is $1.96. And when we say the state school, don't think that we collect money and send it off to Concord and get it back. We just collect that and keep it here. But that's what the state has us raise. The smallest portion is the county, which is 96 cents per thousand, which we do collect and send it off to the county. And what we're discussing tonight is the town, or this portion, which is less than 25% of the tax rate, which is $5.71 per thousand. And this is just a quick 5-year comparison. As you can see, the town is right here, which is the second portion. We've remained pretty level when it comes to the tax rate over the last 5 years. And here's the big factor for this year. As everybody's aware, we went through a revaluation. So every 5 years by the state constitution, we must reassess all town properties to make sure we're at 100, or close to 100% value as possible. Last year, we're at $763,201,228 of total value. This year, after exemptions, we're at $977,203,228. If you put the exemptions in there, we are over $1 billion now in value. So what's that mean? Last year, whenever we wanted to raise $763,201, that's $1 in a tax rate. Now, for every $1, it's $977,203 on the tax rate. So that's why the rate drops when the value of the town goes up. Actually, town council is recommending the following for a bottom line budget. It's $13,233,167, or an increase of 9.46%. The total increase is $1.1 million. The enterprise fund is going to see an increase of $260,331. The general fund is $716,322, and the special revenue is $166,967. And here's just a comparison of the expenditures by fund. Last year, general fund was $7,720,610. The council is proposing $8,490,844. Special revenues, which is the recreation revolving, our solid waste, as well as our contribution to the library, is the reason why there's special revenue for two of those is that they create their own revenues to offset the costs. Last year was $1,155,086. Council adopted a budget of $1,325,050. In the enterprise funds, which is water and sewer, which is funded through water and sewer user rates, last year was $3,265,038, and this year is $3,417,273. So where's it going? Well, the largest portion is we have our first year payment for the McAllen debt service for the McAllen Dam. As you're aware, a bond was passed to repair the McAllen Dam, so $191,220 is for the first year debt payment on that. $28,727 with finance department employees. We'll be adding an additional employee to offset some of the load that they have. When I first got here, there were 5 members total in that department. We're down to 3. So we're seeing some things falling by the wayside, but that will allow us to have a part-time employee. $48,806 for police salaries. That is a contractual obligation. There's a collective bargaining improvement that was approved a few years ago. $104,779 is energy improvement lease. This is our performance contracting. Last year, the council entered into an agreement with EEI to give us an audit, and then what we're doing is we are leasing to improve our energy facilities and efficiencies in the town. So, for example, replacing the boiler, replacing thermostats, installing solar panels at some of the buildings. This is the first year lease payment, but the money that is being saved through our electricity is offsetting the lease payment, but we still have to budget for this as a solid number. So that's why you see the increase to $104,779. $54,281 in buildings and ground salaries. That's just what we're doing is back in the previous budget, we did not have the facilities director 100% in our budget. We actually have to budget 100% and then offset that with the revenue source. That's why that's there. $29,000 is for the solid waste disposal contract. We're currently we received a proposal from our current provider for 1 year. I'm going to go to the council to ask for a 1-year extension due to the fact that the solid waste market right now is very volatile. Everything from recycling to, we don't know the number of facilities that in the state we're going to be able to dispose of solid waste any longer, because we have 2 main ones. The one we use most of the time is Waste Management in Rochester. The other large one in the state is Casella up in Bethlehem. And our understanding is that the Casella facility is not getting approvals to expand. So it's going to actually shrink down to 1 facility in the state. That will just increase the cost for everybody. And finally, there's a contribution of $105,583 to water capital reserve funds to do projects in the future. One of the things that the council and always reviews is what the Capital Improvement Committee recommends to contribution to capital reserve funds, and I apologize that should actually say council on the side where it says town administrator proposed. The department, they requested $285,000 for contribution. We are only recommending $75,000. Building improvements, they requested $278,000. We're only recommending $15,000 contribution. Roadway improvement, we are level funding that at $250,000 for contribution. Stormwater management, $25,000 contribution to that fund. And if you see here, this is how much is currently in all those funds. as of July 1st of this year. Fire and rescue, they are requesting $131,778 to be put in the fund. We're only doing $50,000. Police vehicles, it's $7. The reason why, we're putting the request for vehicles in the operating budget. Vehicles are not a capital item. They are more of we replace them every year. It's not these big projects that we do periodically. So all we were doing is taking $45,000, putting it in the capital reserve fund, then coming back and withdrawing that $45,000 to buy a cruiser. So now that's in their operating budget, so we can just do that without it. It does not go through the capital reserve fund anymore. Plus, if you see, there's $159,000, almost $160,000 in capital reserves for police cruisers. We could buy about four cruisers just using the capital reserve fund. So we said, well, let's pull back there and put it back in the operating budget where it belongs. Dispatch equipment, they requested $26,566. We're recommending it $10,000. The Veterans Memorial, that is to create a new Veterans Memorial downtown. It's $2,000, and that's what we're leaving it at. Reval, it's $0. We don't need to put any money aside because we did it. So we're fine there. The master plan, we do put $10,000 a year in order to hire consultants to update a chapter a year. So we're just keeping that at level funded. The 300th anniversary celebration expendable trust. And 2027 will be our 300th birthday. For the last number of years, we've been putting $2,000 aside. So in 2027, we'll have feeder money in order to have a large celebration, which communities usually do when they hit 300 or a milestone birthday. The compensated absence expendable trust, we're not contributing any funds this year. The library requested $30,000 for the capital reserve fund. We are saying 10. And recreational facilities request $128,903. We're only saying $86,050. So departments requested a little bit under $1.2 million in contribution to capital reserve funds. We're funding it at $535,057, or 2% increase over the previous year. The large one that you see is recreation. That's to help offset the development of a splash pad and other additions down at the Landroff field. The revenue budget. The revenue budget fluctuates. We actually get to revise that prior to tax rate setting. Last year we had an estimate of a little bit under $7 million at 6.96. This year we're anticipating at 7.2. We're seeing increases in motor vehicle registrations. They're still going up. We're also have a revenue source now to offset the cost of the facilities director from the school, so we have that in there as well. And this is my red flag. Next slide you see is an estimate only using data as we have today, because as we said, we're going to be setting this tax rate almost a year from now, so budgets could change at this point in time. So the gross appropriation is $13,233,167. You subtract the revenues of $7,236,220. Then you subtract, add $20,000 of overlay. What overlay is cost of any abatements that we may have out there. And then we add an estimate for our war service credits. So the total net appropriation would be $6,171,947. You then take that versus the assessed value of $977,203,228, and the tax rate proposed would be $6.32 per thousand. There is one bond warrant article, the sewer system evaluation survey. This is to do a study of our sewer system. The state is recommending that we do this. They would provide us with a $75,000 loan, and it's 100% forgiveness. So there's no impact on rates, but by law, that has to be approved by the legislative body, so we still have to go with a bond article to do this. But it's 100%, so there's no impact on the rates. And that is my presentation for the operating budget.
Thank you very much, Steve.
No problem.
At this time, I wanted to just open up the floor to anybody who has any questions or looking for clarifications on what we just to look at. Sir?
Steve, what was the amount raised? We're currently in the 20 fiscal year,
Correct.
and the 20 amount raised by taxes is 5.374.
The tax rate?
The amount raised,
The amount raised is, hold on. Put my budget. Correct, $5,374,531. The net appropriation?
the net appropriation,
Yep,
5,
5,374,000.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I misunderstood it.
Yep.
And the proposed budget is 6,176.
Yep. And I can tell you the $5,000 difference between the council's proposed budget and my proposed budget, because there is one, is that there was a clerical error with including in one of the social service grants, and the council added it at the last meeting for Oyster River Women, am I getting the title right? Women's Aid? Women Aid. So we added $5,000. Other than that, the budgets were gonna be the same.
So, what is the increase in the amount raised, you know, by percentage point?
Total. Give me 1 second. You mean the net appropriation?
Yes.
Okay. 15% for net appropriation.
15,
Yeah, percent. Budget to budget, it's 9.46.
what's bothering me is that 15% increase is a lot on a year-to-year basis.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize part of that is McCollum Dam, which is undertaken by Wilson Town. But even taking that out, it's a big year-to-year boost. And there's nothing else that I know of, you know, cost of living, average salary increase, or anything that's anywhere close to 15.
And I can tell you that one of the largest areas that we didn't have this year for luxury is our fund balance. In the past, we've been having healthier fund balances that we've been able to use those funds to offset increases. And usually what I do is I use it for the offset the capital contribution to capital reserves, just in case you come to a situation that you have no fund balance to use, that you just don't contribute to capital reserve funds that year. What the reason why we're there, a couple of years ago, we did withdraw a larger amount than we normally did to do more roads. In addition, the operating budget that we've been using since I've gotten here, we've been getting down to, what was the actual difference between budget and actual? I mean, end of fiscal year? About 40,000. Usually we'd have, when I first got here, it was 400,000. So we've been budgeting more accurately, so we just don't have the fund balance to be able to use it to offset one-time project.
But if I use an example of the police vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
you're putting 45,000 or thereabouts into the budget for a vehicle. I can understand that. But what happens to the 159,000 that's already sitting there? That's 3 vehicles. Are you saving that for a rainy day when we have to buy 3 vehicles?
That right now is being put aside because this is the first year that we would have. This is the first year we're putting the vehicles in the budget. If for some reason this budget fails, and we don't, that police vehicle comes out, what we can do is go to that 159 and withdraw money to actually replace the vehicle this year. But yes, basically yes, we are holding it there in case of emergency at this point in time. The other fund that we can use that is not on here to use police vehicles is the detail fund. anytime you see police officers out there doing a roadside detail, whatever we bill to the companies that are doing that, that money goes into a separate account, and we're allowed to use that to buy the equipment, so we can buy a cruiser from there. And usually we do. Usually we buy two police cruisers a year, one from the operating budget and one from that fund.
My concern is that we're putting a big tax increase on the citizens and not using money that's sitting there unused. And I'm wondering why. I mean, you know, a rainy day fund, if we buy one police vehicle a year, a rainy day fund doesn't have to account for 3 years of rain. And for 3 years of no contribution from the town budget in those 3 years. So why do you propose, and why does the town council propose increasing the taxes on the citizens and yet keeping the money in the bank?
Again, I mean, that is the reasoning why the council decided, and we were using that level there. If the budget committee wishes to reduce the budget by 45,000, then we'd have to figure out what to do.
I understand. I'm trying to understand what our role is.
Mhm.
If our role is only to look at the bottom line, then we didn't need 60-some pages of numbers. We could just look at one number, the bottom line. And so if that's all we're supposed to look at, I guess, you know, sit back and say, I don't like it.
And I don't mean to say it's only the bottom line, but you're correct. It's the budget committee has a right to say, look, we don't believe that $45,000 is right to have in that line item. You have the right to reduce that. But ultimately, it's the council's decision where that $45,000 comes from. Because it's the council's decision of the operations.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I'm just using that.
Yeah, no, I understand.
I'm not against the police.
Yeah,
police
no.
vehicle.
And absolutely not.
But
And
that's true in a number of our capital accounts where there's significant funds unspent.
that was a philosophy that past councils had, and we're talking 10 years ago plus, that the mentality was, instead of, whenever there was a project you had in mind, you kept putting money aside until the time that project was due. That's an old New England way to do it. What most modern municipalities do which is not bad to have, is debt. Like to buy a fire truck, you would issue debt on a lease purchase agreement on that. We're not buying any this year with that, but so we still have you're right. We still have a lot of funds out there that we need to draw down in order to do these other projects by issuing debt. One of the big ones when I got here, the building improvement fund was like $500,000, and I had councilors asking me, well, what's the money for? There was no record for what the money was for. They were just putting money aside for a rainy day without actual projects to be in there, to the point where it was being used as an operational fund. Anytime we had something wrong with a building in town, we'd have to come withdraw money from the capital reserve fund to fix a door, something small. We said, well, that doesn't make sense. You should put in the operational cost, which now we do. But I understand what you're saying, that we do have some high capital reserve funds, and the police cruisers is one of them. So.
Roger, you complete? It's not a one and done, we can come back to. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, can you just, under the revenues, miscellaneous revenue and revenue from special reserve funds, both of those in the budget, the administrator's budget and the council's budget went up by 25,000 relative to what's listed as proposed by the department head. I'm not sure that department heads necessarily propose a revenue budget.
No, that's.
I guess I'm more just interested in what the underlying belief is. I mean, especially miscellaneous revenue, because that's going up by close to 100,000 from what we had in the 2020 budget.
That is what we bill to the school district for the facilities director. We didn't have a revenue line when we adopted the previous budget, so now it's a one-to-one. We have to budget as a revenue.
But, I mean, there's nothing else in there? I don't think you're billing the school department $100,000
It's
for,
100 and, probably about 140, because of benefits, retirement, all the other it's not just the salary. So it's about 80-20. So they're paying 80, we pay 20.
All right.
It's not-
So, yeah, it's, the benefit
not
package is
50-50.
up there,
Okay.
yeah.
saying,
All
well,
right,
it's supposed to
sorry,
be a
yeah, I
lot
had
of
50-50 in my head.
Yeah,
That
no,
makes-
it's not
that makes more
50-50.
sense.
We did it
That
by
makes more
the
sense.
percentage of the budget.
All right, and revenue from the special reserve funds, that's up about 140 from last year.
That is, we're seeing actually success in the recreation. It's basically, yeah, they're having more revenues coming in, so we're trying to budget to actual there.
Okay. For now, yeah.
Let me take a look to my left and see
Yep.
if, any of this-
Yeah, there we go. We have a default budget yet? Where do we stand?
We do not. I'm working on it. I just started, actually.
Okay. Is
And
it-
in my, back of envelope, it's not gonna be that much of a bit difference
That's,
between the
that's what I
default.
was kind of getting at. Is it
When the
gonna be-
largest numbers are contractual obligations, we have to include those in, so the debt services is gonna be in there as well as the police union contract.
So, but the total amount's going up, the charge amount is going up to $1.5 million, right?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so the default budget, in worst case, would be 1.5 less, but I'm sure it's
Yeah.
not gonna be, okay.
It's not a situation we'll be over. One of the things actually, the other part of that is, the contribution to capital reserves. So that would be pretty much the same amount, because that's what we had in the previous year. The way we do a default budget is last year's operating budget minus any one-time expenditures, which we don't usually have one-time expenditures in the operating budget, plus contractual obligations. So things that would probably be coming out, part-time position in finance would be coming out, so it's about 30. Trying to think what else on that list. But yeah, no, it's not gonna be that big of a difference. Because, yeah, we have the energy improvement lease, so there's 100,000 that would stay in, because that's a contractual obligation. Solid waste disposal contract, that's a contractual obligation. Water capital reserve, it's 105, but that's not a tax item, that's a ratepayer, so that stays in because it's a wash. The 191 for debt service has to stay in because it's a contractual obligation for the dam. And then 48.8 for police salaries. So what things we would be reducing is 54,281 for buildings and ground, and 28,727 for finance department employees. Other than that, it's all the small, where we'd have a slight increase, that would probably go back down to the level. That's why we're trying to get there.
So, I understand how this works, you'll come up with a default budget that the council has to approve what that default
That's correct.
budget would be? And
Yep.
then it comes back to us? Okay.
So,
Okay.
Jeff, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I've got a few. Which revenue line has the charges for the ambulance service?
that is,
Is it charges for service?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why we actually bumped that one up significantly.
Yeah, I also noticed that there were some increases for police and fire, medical supplies and stuff like that. Is that part of
It's pretty
that
much a wash,
offset?
yeah.
Yeah,
We've
I
had
just
the
wanted
number.
to see if they were related.
Yeah, not only did we increase the amount of revenue we're getting for ambulance to reflect what we're closer to what we're doing, the council has increased the cap for how much we put into the ambulance fund in order to buy equipment. You're allowed to take a certain percentage of that and put it into to that fund. It used to be, I think it was down to 25,000, and we bumped up to 75, which is still very safe. I mean, it's not like we're gonna go broke on the ambulance situation.
Okay, thank you. Another one I noticed, a few pages, page 26, finance, 38 for MIS, and a few others, had some pretty big communication service increases. Some of them went down, some of the other budgets, but can you explain a little bit what that is?
That was the, yeah, yeah, Mike.
Hi. My understanding is that's the result of the new communication systems that you purchased, and so part of that is the cost of the phones as well as the service for that.
Okay. And is it, you know, the ones that go up versus the ones that go down, is it related to the consumption of those services, like how many phones or something like that?
I think it's actually more accurate to say we're billing correctly to each of the
Oh,
departments.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Thanks. And then one more thing. You had the increase for the lease for the energy
Yes.
energy plan. Do you know the offset on the other direction? I mean, it wasn't listed because it would be a lot of little line items reduced, but do you know the net?
So, not to be evasive, but we are calculating this. It comes in, it's a reduction in operational expense is essentially what happens. So, but we're starting to collect this and look at it as the year goes on. So, because this is just, I mean, they've been doing a lot of the work even in the building right now. So I think they were just here like up until the end of last week, and then they're doing some additional work like at the police station later in the week. So this is continuing to happen, and then we'll continue to see savings, and that will increase over time. So it'll ramp up as we go.
That would be in the actuals, right? Because the work's actually done. And
Correct.
I just meant in this budget.
Yeah, no, we don't know what the actuals are yet.
Sure.
Because they're not finished. So we have to, as soon as that happens though, that's when we'll see the difference.
But we must have guessed in here, right? Because you're reducing the.
That's what the lease payment is, correct?
Okay, so it's roughly net
Yeah.
zero this year, and then
We-
we'll see. Is that what?
Yes,
Okay, that works for me.
we hope so.
So I mean, to piggyback on Jeff's question, just because the pro forma, we're budgeting a reduction in heating and electrical costs.
We are not yet, because we're not 100% sure what the reduction will be, because we're not online yet. So what we know though is the lease payment is 171. Is that 171? I can't remember. Whatever that number was. Yeah, we know that's a lease payment. Ultimately, in the first year, we're going to have a surplus because we're not using the complete energy one. And since we don't know yet, even for 2021, this is the issue of having to budget 2 years in advance. I can't tell you where we're going to be. But I also don't want to cut the energy budgets by 15, 20%, and come to find out we're seeing a 2% savings, and then we'll be over the budgets. That situation.
So I'm showing electricity to be about 332,000.
Mhm.
That reflects pretty much the baseline we've been at. That doesn't include any savings.
Right. It doesn't. And electricity is not as impacted by this as heating. That's going to be the big one.
Great, Christian, I saw your hand.
Yeah, hey Steve, on page 13, regarding healthcare impact of $820,000, a bit over 10% of municipal budget, and with the two service plans being discussed, is there anything the town's trying to do to control healthcare costs? Does the town offer a high deductible plan with an HSA, or is it only PPOs, or is the town able to do anything implementing programs?
We do offer now a different plan because of what happened was when the original, and I'm going to use terms, and please don't take this as politically incorrect, this is just the common terms. When the Affordable Care Act came into place, that in order to comply with the Cadillac tax, we had to offer a higher plan, which is that point of service
That's the
plan.
point of service, okay.
Right. Nobody takes it.
Nobody uses it.
Nobody uses it.
Okay.
The issue that we run into is we also have to negotiate with collective bargaining agreements with our healthcare plans. I know I was asked, why, are we working with the school to join theirs? Their plan's actually more expensive than ours, so we prefer to stay where we are right now. Understand also that we're in a municipal pool, that it's not just Newmarket, we're as a larger pool with other municipalities in the state through the health trust. Every time we do a collective bargaining agreement, I look at it. One of my issues is that we're always also close that we could have other collective bargaining units formed. We only have one on the town side. So I try not to go too much different for those not covered by a collective bargaining unit, than those covered in order to see if we make sure we're fair.
You have another question?
The energy contract that you have, is there a performance stipulation on that?
There is.
Do they make a guarantee?
Yes.
How much you're gonna,
Yes. I don't have it off the top of my head, though.
so if there's a guarantee on it, then why are we not reducing the budget? I assume the penalty for missing the guarantee is that we don't pay those.
Accurate. I don't have the agreement in front of me, so I can get that and come back.
It would seem like
Yep.
it'd be reasonable to budget the amount that you expect to pay,
Yep. Let me.
not have been paying. And if you don't get that savings, then you're reducing the amount you pay for the consultant.
Yeah. Let me get that for the next meeting, and I'll have that information. Yep.
I'm gonna come back to this in just a second, but, Mr. Matthews, you had one other comment?
Just on the same page regarding the 10% increase in property liability coverage and workers' compensation, is that normal? And again, is there some sort of program, certificate, training that we can be doing to not increase that rate so much? It just seems really high of a jump. but-
It's average. I mean,
It's average.
it is an average 10%. We do training. We'd have, every department does safety training, everything from harassment training down to slips and falls, to the police, how to enter, facilities with SWAT. Biggest problem with property liability workers' compensation is, there's no competition anymore. 5 years ago, you had Primex, who is our carrier, but you also had the local government center, who offered the same products, and you had competition, so the rates dropped. Now Primex is the only player in town, so they pretty much insure everybody since it's a pool, and there's no competition. We can, but it's extremely difficult for a municipality to go out on the open market for liability insurance and workers' compensation. Why? Because we're the business that sends people into fires and get shot at versus stay away from those things. So people don't want to insure people that do that. That started in the late 80s, early 90s, and it's just not many people have come into the market since. They're actually, when I say insurance, they're not insurance, they're pools. We pool our money together, and if we have a good year, you don't see much of an increase. If you have a bad year, we see rates go up, but it's a pool.
George, Jeff, anything else? Yeah, I did.
Just looking at the part-time salaries for fire and rescue, looks like we're pretty far overspent for fiscal 19. I guess two-part question. The first part is there an offset to that in revenue somewhere, extra services for fire and rescue? And if not, I'm just curious what the thought process was in only budgeting 200 when we're at 218 spent already for fiscal year 19.
No, it's not offset. We do not bill for fire calls. We bill for ambulance, so partially there, yes, but if it's a fire call, no. What we were running into is that on weekends, holidays, days, because remember we have a volunteer force, our response time was dropping. Getting bigger. We couldn't get people in here because we want to do other things. So what we started doing is offering stipends on the weekends to make sure we have call firefighters available, that they, we pay them X amount, but they have to be able to answer a call during the weekend. It's a hit or miss. We could have a year that we don't get as many calls. So that's why we only went with the 200 versus where we were last year.
Okay.
Additional questions, Mr. Matthews?
I got a couple, so
Sure.
just keep on. Just page 14 regarding the dam. I know you had a second bid meeting for that, so I think the debt service you had said would only be paid if we actually get someone to bid on it. So did we have someone bid on it this?
We do have we do have bids. We haven't awarded the bid, but I have to budget for it just in case.
But you do think that we
Yeah.
are gonna be,
Yeah, because even if they don't do it now, we'll go out to bid again in the spring.
okay,
And we still have that, I mean, we won't issue the debt unless we have to. But, I mean, we're gonna have enough time between now and June of 2021 that probably issue the debt.
okay. And is that when the bond that we all passed terminates? Is there a time ending on
20 years.
20, oh, it's 20 years?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a 20-year bond, is that, or do you mean,
So
it's,
when you basically can't go out to bid anymore?
I don't believe there is, once we have authority, we can always go out, yeah.
Mr. Matthews, I'll stick with you until,
Okay,
like,
sorry.
your throat gets sore.
Page 16, recreation revolving fund going up by 38%. I think it's mostly full-time, part-time salaries and equipment. Is it just staff expansion?
Yeah, rec revolving, what comes in goes out.
Yeah.
So when, a few years ago, we stopped, we don't want to say that the rec programs are all self-sufficient, because they're not. Most of them are, if not, turn a profit. So yes, anything that goes up in the expense there is offset by a revenue. That's why the revenue on the special revenues is up.
Same page, Tony might be able to answer some. So solid waste is going up by about 10%. Are we gonna increase bag fees?
I am started looking at that.
Yeah.
It's time. We have not had a bag price increase in a number of years. I know the councilors are, I have not talked to the council yet on that.
It's hard to see that number and
Did-
expect
yeah.
taxpayers. when
Didn't they just go up, the bags?
No. Bags have not gone up since I've been here, and I've been here 7 years.
I paid more at the Irving, they just told me that they went up.
Oh,
No?
no, we have not increased the bag.
Used to be 11.25, I paid 15. Is that right? Somebody said they were going up too.
We haven't increased,
Well,
we have
I'll
not increased bag prices.
Well, I got robbed.
No. Check the size of your bag, maybe they
No,
sold you the
it's
wrong
the
ones,
same-
or I don't
Same
know.
friggin' bag.
Yeah, we've not increased bag prices.
Well, that's
Things you
interesting.
learn from watching the budget committee.
Yeah. Please take that note.
Seems like that'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
Um,
And to be honest, when it comes to bags, what I'm seeing, we are lower than most communities around here. So it's not a unreasonable thing to actually look at increasing it.
Page 28, election official salary going up 86%. Are we paying more or just? do we
More
need
elections.
More elections?
Yeah.
Okay, with the presidential
Yeah.
election.
Well, presidential's in actually the primary's in this fiscal year. Now we gotta think, but we also have a November election and a state primary election, which is in this fiscal year, this proposed fiscal year.
Let me take a quick check, make sure that you haven't spurred conversation from anybody else at the table.
Well, if we could loop back to rec for a moment, where does the field maintenance come from, rec or buildings and ground?
Buildings and ground.
Because I know there's some issues with several of the fields that
And we're trying to start addressing that as a more master plan project to do field by field.
and actually, I'll jump in one more time. I understand the original Public Works building is 50 years old, and the end of life on that roof is 50 years. Is there enough money in their capital reserve fund to replace that?
Original public,
The Public Works building on New Road?
oh, that's not
Original
50.
portion. The original portion of it?
Not 50. Oh, no, that's,
I think that's what Rick told us at the tour that we did.
no. I think it's mid-90s, because the original Public Works facility is now the animal crematorium down on 152. So when they built that as a combined facility, it's not 50 years. It's, I want to say 90s, so it's 20 years. I don't think it's 15. I think it's longer than that, but it's not 50. But we are already in the process of getting the engineering for a new roof, so. And part of that was also to put solar panels on top of it.
Oh, excellent. Are you leasing those, or?
That's part of the program. Yep.
Check over here, come back again Zachary, did you have anything?
Page 52, I did just want to help you get the name right. It's Oyster River Womenade.
Thank you.
But spelled like lemonade.
Okay,
Women, A-D-E.
thank you.
Just to get it out there, I have a total conflict of interest with that. If it ever comes up, I'm a board member, my wife's a board member, so getting that out there.
No, there's a conflict of interest of spelling.
That was spelled, yeah.
First Steve's name on my agenda.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. Page 54. So I know you kind of explained how maybe the council switching to more of a debt service plan, but is that where they're going to seeing these year-to-date, the 2019 appropriations to the proposals, seeing numbers drop, building improvement 225 to
Yeah.
15? I mean, there's some pretty big drops.
And that was actually, when we do a contribution to capital reserve, that automatically goes in. It's a wash for an account. I don't know why it says 0 on this one. It's, as soon as we get those funds, we take them and segregate them and put them into the capital. So it's 100%.
Okay.
It's not, these are not the withdrawals from the capital reserves. That, when you saw that sheet, when I said the columns, that said what we currently have in there, that is what's in those funds. So say if we had road improvements, usually a 1-to-1. Whatever we do, we spend, because we are always trying to do completely 250,000. We actually try to do more in roads. Building improvement, we contributed 225, probably, that was in 2019. This past year, we did 15,000 to contribute that, because what we did last year is we took that, remember how I said that we had anytime we had an operational building repair, we had to go to the council, withdraw funds for something like fixing a window, or, because they put so much money in the capital reserve funds where the council is the agent, that we couldn't fix things because we have to go to the council, they have to approve it, and then we can fix it. So the council said, it doesn't make sense operationally to have to do it that way. If you have a broken door, fix the door. And so that's why we put those funds in the operation. So you probably, last year, you saw almost a 1-to-1 between the money that we're not putting in the Buildings and Ground Capital Reserve Fund and the increase in the Buildings and Ground budget.
On the building improvement line, there's, on July 1, 2019, you show 167,000 in the capital reserve.
Correct.
I assume that in the, this current budget, ending in July of 20, we're putting more money into the capital reserve?
Yeah, we're putting 15,000. Only $15,000.
15,000.
Yep.
So, is any of that money being spent in 20?
This is not for operational costs. We're using that for larger projects or emergencies. Say if we did have a roof failure, we would need to find the money somewhere to do that, to fix it. So we put the money aside in the capital reserve fund. That's like the savings account for the larger projects that we do not know that may come up.
So I could assume that in next July 1, it would be around $180,000 in that
Probably, unless we had some large project.
account.
Yeah,
And we're putting in at the rate of 15,000.
right.
But we don't take out unless it's,
Unless it's something that we do not have the funds in our regular operations for. Like I said, for example, if there was an emergency that we didn't plan for or a large project, then yes, we would go to the capital reserve fund to withdraw it. If it's just regular operational repairs, then we'd do that from the operating budget.
is that same thing true with the capital reserve for recreation?
No, recreation is for equipment, usually equipment, upgrades to some fields and parks. So that's why we put money in there and withdraw it. Again, the large contribution this year is due to the construction of a splash pad and they're gonna withdraw probably a much larger portion to do that. We're hoping to get grants to offset it, so we would not have to. But in that situation, there's other recreation things that we'd be putting those funds to.
How big a project is that? Rough number.
I think it was $500,000, about $500,000. Because it's a splash pad, it's bathroom facilities, it's yeah, down at the Leo Landroff Field, because there are very few facilities down there.
Christian, I'll come back to you.
Page 57, why is the recreation department paying bank fees? No other department has that listed, and it's 7,000, it's about 2% of their total budget. What would they be paying fees for?
Good question, we'll get that one.
Yeah. 'Cause I know the town, if you pay with a credit card, you have to pay a fee for that, checks,
Yeah.
otherwise, so,
We'll find that one out.
yeah.
Yeah, along that line, the only item for a telephone was the library. That was,
Well, the library is different. We don't have authority over the library. The only thing we have authority is we write them the check for the lump sum, much like here. And they have to still budget for each, they're not in with our phones.
oh, okay.
They're on their own. They're overseen by the Board of Trustees.
Do I assume that communication services is telephone?
Yeah.
David, do you have something? No, it's, right, okay. I'll check just here one more time before I go back to my right.
Nope.
Guess who I'm going to?
And,
Hey, Mr. Manners.
page 58, household hazardous, recycling, and MSW contracts. Do we ever looked into doing regional partnerships with those?
We do.
For our household hazardous waste?
We do.
Who do we partner with?
We do it, I want to say, do we in Brentwood? I believe it's in, I know we don't do it in-house, we do it as a group consortium. Solid waste, we actually bid with Stratum until this year Newfields, they decided to go on their own. I've talked to Exeter, next time their contract's up, to see if we could go with them. The problem with solid waste is, I mean, it's not so much solid waste, it's the recycling. There's no market for recycling right now. You're hearing of some communities not recycling, and we're not gonna do that, but, yeah, that's where we're seeing the increases. And household hazardous waste, we do not do every year. We do it every other, so that's why there's one this year.
And I think Rick Torrid said they might have to start doing it every year.
Right.
Do we do the same thing with electricity? Do we aggregate with other municipalities?
We try when we can. We're doing it, we also look to see if we can do it with the school. Because, we have, the largest electrical user in the town is the wastewater plant, because it's on 24/7, so.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, this town is big enough that you're not gonna get a whole lot out of doing aggregation beyond
Yeah.
the town. You're already well within that sweet spot for the mid-major marketers.
Communication services shows up in a number of different departments, but many of them are up significantly, up 45%, one up 180%. It looks like communication itself is up significantly. Is there a reason why, and is there a focus on that?
The only reason why it's actually up is previously we had it in one line item. This is actually being billed now towards each department.
Well, if we allocated that line item to all the departments, and all the departments add up to a big increase, that looks like a place where the budget is calling for more than you really are gonna spend.
No, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a reduction somewhere else in communication services when we divided it up.
Trying to think of where that was.
I believe it was under buildings and grounds. Let me just try to find the number.
Building, ground,
No,
communication is down 38%. That's one of the few that's down. Most of them are up significantly.
right.
I'm just concerned whether we have, in taking them and putting them into individual departments,
We can do that. We'll get the answer. No,
Are we, as a town, generally seeing the cost of, like, internet and telecom services? I don't know, we just put ours out to bid where I work, and I was not necessarily stunned to see how the costs are coming down, but just,
Yeah.
like, people are throwing, like, gigabit bandwidth at you like candy at this point.
We get our internet through Comcast, through the
Yeah.
business server, because it's also part of the franchise agreement. We've not seen, we've seen the speeds go up, but we're not seeing a big of a decrease.
All right.
So, and we've gone out to bid for our telephone service 2 years ago, and we went to Bay Ring, which is now First Light. I always forget the name. Yeah, First Light. So they provide us our telephone service.
Okay.
Yeah, we do. We go out to bid for those. Electricity, we do it almost like a commodity market. People look at it, see what we can get. Propane, everything like that, we do as well.
Folks, let me just make sure that there aren't any final questions. Otherwise, I'll let the gentleman go. All right. Mr. Forney, Mr. Tappan, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time tonight. We appreciate all the answers and.
We'll get those
information.
back. We can do it by email, maybe after the holiday, but we'll get
Sounds great.
the answer to
I
ones you
can put that
question.
out to the rest
Yep.
of the committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, folks. Great. Our last order of business for tonight is just a quick review of the upcoming meetings that we have on our plate. So just make note in your calendars that December 9 is our targeted working session for the school district budget. So it's a repeat of tonight with the school. And then on the 16th, we'll be back here for the public hearing on the budget for the town. And then the January 13th is the school district budget hearing. And with that,
Will we get the school see that before the 9th?
we are expecting to get it before we meet and talk about it,
Okay.
yeah, just like we did.
Are we meeting on the second?
That's an open day right now that we do not have a plan to meet. If that changes for some reason that we figure out that there needs to be a meeting, I'll reach out to the group. But at this point, our next meeting is December 9.
Are we shooting for 7 o'clock at all those meetings?
We're shooting for 7 o'clock at all those meetings. Yes, sir. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Can I
Oh,
ask,
sure. Sorry.
what is the process here on this budget? When do we make it?
After the yes, sir. After the town public hearing, we will make a recommendation to accept the budget.
After the, okay, all right. Thank you.
Sure.
So is that, and at that meeting, that's where we make motions to amend the budget if necessary?
All right. Motion to adjourn.
So
Thank you, Zachary.
Second.
Thank you, Dan, for a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.